2. Hey, what's up, everybody? Big Shore Yukin to everyone out there watching here for another episode, a different episode of Damian and DEO. Find us on social media, DamianG347 on Twitter. I'm just DEO on Twitter and Instagram. The Damian G Show on Instagram as well. So this is going to be a offshoot of Damian and DEO. Mondays, we're going to focus on either cartoons that we grew up watching or we enjoyed, or video games. Wednesday will be Dark Side of the Ring, and Friday will be an amalgam of everything that we really want to talk about, maybe even movies. Yeah. So 3 days a week we're going to shoot for. So Mondays for today, we're going to strictly talk about fighting games or beat 'em ups that we've played, as well as possibly the worst superhero cartoon adaptation that we had the infamy to watch today to catch up for the episode. So bear with us. This isn't a wrestling show. This isn't a human interest show. This is straight up nerd spectacular. So enjoy, sit back, and enjoy the hot takes about fighting video games as well as just animated BS, because when we take a romanticized view of all that stuff, some of it doesn't age well.
Man, nostalgia is a hell of a drug, bro.
Isn't it though?
It is a hell of a drug. Like that's all I can say.
Okay, so we're going to walk people through this. Today's first show was going to center around, possibly, as you can see, but the scroll at the bottom here, thanks to StreamYard, Australian Wolverine was a thing before Hugh Jackman.
Yeah.
Now, what we mean by that is that we decided to watch the first X-Men cartoon that comes to mind, not the cool intro on Fox, not with the Jean Grey love story with Wolverine and Cyclops.
No, because I think there were X-Men. There were X-Men cartoons before that were like one-shot type things.
As this was,
but this was the first modern, and when I say modern, I'll say like 90s things, because this came out 89-ish.
Yes, 1989.
So the pilot came out 89. That means the show would have came out in the 90s, right? 90s.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was bad. It was very bad. It was like so many things that I thought were just fucking awesome as a kid. I look back at it now and I'm like, I remember watching it as a kid, and then because it since it was a pilot, it didn't get like widespread play.
Right.
But I do remember, like, I guess it would just randomly be like when they ran out of the X-Men animated series ones, they would throw this one in there. And it was like, I remember as a kid, I was like, oh, this is awesome. And then I watched it again in my early teens, probably. I was like, all right, now I can discern between things. Why the fuck does Wolverine have an Australian accent? Why is he calling people dingoes? This doesn't make sense. He's from Canada. So I don't get this. I don't get it.
So let's give some backstory really quick. Aside from the Wolverine Australian thing, the show we're talking about is called Pryde of the X-Men. The title of the pilot was called Pryde of the X-Men. Now that is a play off of Kitty Pryde, Shadow Cat, and it also spawned one of the, I don't want to say one of the best beat 'em ups.
It was one of the best beat 'em ups ever. Fuck that. Yes, it was one of the best beat 'em ups ever.
Okay, so we'll talk about that later in the show about the best beat 'em ups ever. But it was a side-scrolling beat 'em up fighting arcade game. It was the first time in my memory that you could play 6 players on one arcade cabinet.
Yeah.
Okay, so Pryde of the X-Men, one shot, 1989, a pilot, where the biggest deal is that Wolverine is Australian and says Barbie, skewering people on the Barbie because Pyro, he himself,
is Australian. Right.
And the Blob is monosyllabic.
I don't know what the fuck he is. Like, he had like this weird, so this was everything that was wrong with the 80s. Like this was one of the most 80s cartoons as you can get.
Yes.
Like the voice, so it was animated by the same people that did G.I. Joe. So if you grew up on the G.I. Joe cartoon, or if you've seen the G.I. Joe cartoon from the 80s, you kind of know what the style is going to be. You know, guys with really big muscles and
jawlines
and super jawlines and things like that. And for some reason, Kitty Pryde was like drawn like a 27-year-old woman, but she was 14.
Mm-hmm.
And
she looked like Jem.
Yeah, she looked like Jem. And like Nightcrawler's like trying to kiss her hand. I'm like, my guy, you are a whole full-grown man. Stop it.
He's a simping mutant at this point.
Bruh, it like stuff from back then that I can't say we looked past it because we just didn't understand what it was.
We were kids.
We were kids, right? So we were just like, oh, it's whatever. But now, like, I look back at it now and see how problematic this shit was. Man.
So let's start there. Let's start, aside from the really dated animation and storytelling, let's start out the stuff that just came across as problematic.
Yeah.
Okay. They had Nightcrawler, who we talked about last week, is this swashbuckling, teleporting badass of a mutant.
Mm-hmm.
And he was this, like the Cyrano de Bergerac, Three Musketeers, hand kissing. But they drew him like he was Lotor from Voltron.
Right. Like you couldn't really see his face. It was like, and Kitty Pryde was like, get away from me, leave me alone.
Stranger danger.
It was like, this is yeah, it was problematic. But yeah, like so many things. And then like knowing what I know now about like Charles Xavier, one of the things that he says was he's like, oh, I don't use my powers
good. Yeah.
Like you lying son of a bitch. We all know
all know otherwise, Charles Xavier. No, because he states he uses his powers for good and not nefariously.
Right. Like Mike G. Nope. You are a whole scumbag when it comes to using your powers.
He's just as bad as Magneto, honestly.
He's worse than Magneto. No. I will die on this hill. Professor X is the actual villain. Period.
Oh.
Professor X is the actual villain of all of this. If you go with the X-Men lore, he is the actual villain. Why? Because of his God complex. He wants everything to be in his vision. Fuck everybody else's. He knows what's best for everybody. Mm-hmm. He needs to do that. Plus, there's the whole, he basically brainwashed women. He lusted after a young Jean Grey.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of things that go on, and like when the whole thing of when Onslaught becomes a thing later on, I am of the mind that is actually what Charles Xavier always wanted to be, but
And for those who don't know, Onslaught is almost a melding of Professor Magneto. X and Magneto.
Yeah.
So basically, you're saying Professor X wishes he could be more like Magneto, but
due to his injuries,
yes,
he's always seemed like he had some type of a complex when it comes to stuff. And yeah, it's just weird. Like it's one of those hindsight is 2020 type of situations.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to look at the stuff now with fresh eyes. Like, because you can't because when you know all of the backstory and history of these characters that we know now, it's not good. It's really not good.
So I tried to watch today as 1989 version of Damian.
Yeah, I can't even.
Within maybe a minute, when Magneto's locked up by the police or the mutant task force or whatever.
Yeah.
And then we briefly see Emma Frost.
Yeah.
in the first part.
Oh my god, the voice acting. The voice acting on this was so bad.
Yes.
It was, and like Wolverine being Australian, that's like
a foul.
That's bad, but it still wasn't as bad as like how bad Emma Frost sounded.
Toad,
because Toad was like the typical sniveling,
Igor.
Yes, Master Igor. They were like, what the fuck is this? But back in the 80s, like there were no archetypes. Everything was a stereotype when it came to casting characters and the voices that you did and such. And yeah, it was bad. Emma Frost was bad. This is what I want to know. How the fuck did Magneto shield everybody in that bubble to go out into space?
Thank you. That's not part of his powers list.
That's not part of his powers. Or the other thing too is, so like when the X-Men were going to like to the comet, and they were like, oh yeah, and Wolverine, you can use your tracking power. He doesn't have a tracking power.
He can sniff people.
Senses.
Yeah.
Right. That's not a power. Healing factor, that's a power.
Yeah.
And like bone claws, I guess you could say that's a power.
Or when Storm used her tornado to
help motherfuckers fly. Also, this is the other thing too. So Nightcrawler is falling into Earth's orbit. Yeah. And they're like, oh no, we have to get him with the grappling hooks. The motherfucker can teleport.
He needs to see where he's going, right? So if he knows he has to make it back to the X-Mansion.
Or not just that, but like if he can look at the ship, if they can fire grappling hooks at his ass, he can see the fucking ship. Like it was stupid. All this shit was stupid.
Oh, it was so dumb.
Why was Kitty Pryde hugging every man that she saw?
Right.
This is some very 80s stuff. Like the girls had to be the damsel in distress. When Kitty Pryde is literally one of the most like.
Is she Omega level?
Let
me look this up. I'm gonna look this up. For people who don't know what Omega level is, it's basically the highest of mutants.
Yeah, like Omega level. I forgot the actual.
Is Kitty Pryde?
Why?
Thank you, Google. Let's see. Apparently, she is not Omega level. She is not. She's classified as level 7.
Right.
In the 616, which is the main Marvel continuity.
Yeah, but like, so like,
and newsflash, she becomes the Red Queen at some point from the Hellfire Club.
And all right, so Omega level, so like, for those of you, so like when we think Omega level mutants, Storm is Omega level, Magneto is Omega level. I think Xavier Omega level? Oh no, I forgot. Iceman, Bobby Drake, Omega level.
Good for Bobby Drake, by the way.
I mean, like, dude can fucking freeze shit to the point to absolute zero.
Yes.
Like, what's it's fucking ridiculous. Who else? What's the Omega level mutants? There's a lot of them. I did not realize that.
Somebody wrote the other day.
Emma Frost.
Well, yeah,
Franklin
we know she's.
Richards.
Yeah.
If y'all don't know who Franklin Richards is,
Pocket Universe. That's all I'm gonna say.
Like when we talk about OP stuff, overpower people, Franklin Richards is a fucking nightmare.
When he was a baby, I remember reading the comics. When he was a baby, he was wrecking people without even being fully conscious.
Yep.
Just like goo goo gaga killed you. Goo goo gaga saved the universe. What? Yep.
Jean Grey, which if you grew up on the TV show before you started reading the comics, you hate Jean Grey.
You mean for the moaning?
Yeah. Oh, Scott.
And the fainting. Oh.
Somebody opens the door. Oh.
That's the wind.
Fuck, bro. What?
And Professor X always looked like he was ready for a safari.
Always, bro. Why are you
always dressed? He's going on safari.
Always on safari. Like, what the fuck is this? Let's see.
Man. And that's the cool X-Men cartoon. But if we continue on this arc, there's one more I'll raise people on where the music X-Men we remember fondly.
Do you know where that's from, people?
Isn't that a Whitney Houston song?
Whitney Houston, I'm Your Baby Tonight.
Yes.
And like people were like trying to deny it. It's like, no, the guy that came up with the theme literally said he used that as inspiration. So there's no like Whitney Houston gave us like amazing jams and one of the best cartoon bops of all time.
For our Saturday morning cartoons.
Every day. Look, listen, nothing hit harder than a bowl of Fruit Loops and the X-Men cartoon. Like when that theme came on, you knew what time it was. You knew what time it was.
Look, man, it made everybody want to be a mutant.
I wanted to be a mutant so goddamn bad. I knew what my powers were gonna be. Like I knew what my costume was back when I was a kid and I would draw. I drew my costume.
What was your power?
That back then it changed like every week.
I had one, and I've stuck with it actually. And I don't remember if anyone's actually made a mutant like this, and I don't really care. But Kid Damian, because he remembers an episode of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Shredder made a something called the Vitalizer, which turned inanimate objects to life. That would have been my power because I literally can take anything and give it life and have it do my bidding.
When I was a kid, a lot of times it was like, ooh, I want to be Wolverine. So it would go between Wolverine's powers or Nightcrawler's powers. It tend to stick around Nightcrawler's power.
Well, same here, but if we're just talking like making our own power.
Right. Once I actually got old enough to understand things and it was to be able to control electricity, but also become electricity. So like I would be able to like I could like use electric powers here, but like if I needed to travel somewhere, I could just go through like the outlet and come out in some other place.
Like on some Wreck-It Ralph stuff when you go between the power conduits.
Exactly. Yeah. So like that, as I became older, it like with the invention of the internet and stuff like that, I was like, ooh, okay, this I can expand upon that. But yeah, that's what that was back in the day. It was this is what we did when we didn't have internet, kids.
Used our imagination.
We used to use our imaginations. We would all sit around coming up like talking about who our characters were going to be and shit.
So I'm curious, like for anyone watching, listening, feel free to chime in about what you think your superpowers would have been had you been either a mutant or a superhero or even a supervillain. I don't care. Just share that with us because we're not the only ones. We know the rest of you have done that too.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like I did that a lot as a kid. But yeah, this shit was bad. Like
so let's take it back to the Pryde the X-Men episode.
They didn't explain why Lockheed was there.
Nothing. Lockheed was a bad guy, and if you know who Lockheed is, it's Kitty's dragon.
He's a little purple dragon that Kitty Pryde has. He's an alien dragon at that.
Yes, and apparently he was a bad guy for this episode, chilling with Magneto and them, getting
kicked around. I was like, he would have toasted Magneto. Are you fucking serious? Like this is bad. It was bad.
So Sarah in the chat says her power would be using music to control people's minds. Oh, we'll get to that because we saw something this weekend that fits that description perfectly.
Yeah.
Perfectly. And we will get to that later this episode. So Dazzler, since we're on the subject of sound.
Right. So Dazzler.
Yes.
I remember as a kid playing that X-Men cabinet game. And the dope thing about that cabinet was, so the layout of it was actually stupid looking.
Like it's like a weird.
Let me see if I can find like a decent. Okay.
Like I'm seeing it in my head. It wasn't like a round. It's not a round, like a round setup or banana style setup. It's more jagged and boxed.
Yeah. I'm trying to find the actual, like a high quality picture. Aha, that's not it.
But to its positives, it did allow us to use a 6-person X-Men team if we wanted.
Right.
So the members were Cyclops, Storm, Nightcrawler, Dingo
Found
Wolverine,
it. Dingo Wolverine.
Colossus, who all he did was scream and go for the video game, and Dazzler, which nobody really used. So then I think people started realizing nobody. Let me add this to the chat. Nobody. There you go. Yep, it's got a weird box off. There you go.
Yeah, so it was like you had 1, 2, 3, 4 on the front, and then you had these people on the side.
Like a mullet.
And like, in theory, that should not work at all. Like,
no,
at all. But the way that they went about it, you could, no matter where you stood, you could see the screen perfectly.
Yes.
Like, that was dope as hell. So like everybody, like everyone, because that was the thing about a lot of like cabinets back then. For instance, like the Simpsons one, right?
That was
so
good
like
too.
you could only have a couple people. You could only have like, I think it was 4 people at max play that one, right? Because it was Marge. Yeah, because you had Marge, Homer,
Lisa, Homer, and Bart.
Right? So you could only have so many people. This way, like if you were going to Chuck E. Cheese or your favorite roller rink back in the day, everybody could play and everybody could still see, you know.
Yes.
So it was actually very innovative. You didn't really see too many other things do that because the cabinets were expensive. Especially now, if you try to rebuild them, hell no. Like if you buy they're going for like upwards of $3,500 on eBay right now.
Damn, for an arcade cabinet?
Look, if I had money, I'd buy it. Like if I just had money to burn, shit, he ain't said nothing but a word. I've been on that shit.
Basically, I would just set up a home arcade at that point. Yeah.
Oh yeah, no. If I ever win the lottery, I'm gonna have like a whole like arcade in my place. Nobody can come. Nobody, just me. Only I can play them.
He's like, I'm just gonna play video games. Fuck all y'all.
Oh yeah. I will build my pillow fort in there and everything. It's gonna be dope.
Have you ever actually built a pillow fort?
Bruh, how many did I? Shit.
I've never built one, so I'm curious.
So every weekend, I would build a pillow fort from about the age of 5 until about 8 or 9, 8 years old, I think it was. And I would stay up and I would watch movies that I had no business watching because my mom would be out. My mom and my dad, or after they got divorced, my mom and my stepdad would be out in the living room watching stuff that kids couldn't watch. Right. Meanwhile, I was in her bedroom watching things that kids couldn't watch. Shout out to Rhonda Shear, USA up all night. Watching Toxic Avenger and shit. Yes. Revenge of the Nerds.
Toxic Avenger was a cartoon as well. It was an animated cartoon. Yes, they called him the Toxic Avenger.
Yes.
And no, Toxic Crusaders, because he had his own team.
Those are the Toxic Crusaders. He was a Toxic Avenger. Yeah. Those movies were like ridiculously violent.
Yes.
For the time. It was bad character design, but I fucking loved it.
Yeah. Just like Pryde the X-Men, just we didn't love it.
Yeah.
So was there anything redeemable about this episode we saw? And if you want to find it, everybody, it's on YouTube. Just look up Pryde of the X-Men.
No, there's nothing redeemable about it whatsoever. I'm
trying to think.
The song at the beginning, not good. The PSA from Peter Parker.
Stop it.
Was terrible. Like Spider-Man telling me to go vote. Fuck you.
First off, how's Spider-Man gonna vote? He's not registered. He's not registered. Spider-Man,
right?
This isn't Civil War where he registered as Spider-Man. No.
Yeah.
And besides, Peter Parker wasn't old enough to vote for most of his comic career.
Right. Yeah. That was the thing. Like,
stupid.
I was watching a video earlier today about comic book. Like people, they were talking about what went wrong with the DC extended universe, DC cinematic extended universe.
Yeah.
And they were spot on it. But yeah, they're like how they kind of addressed the whole thing of, how comic book characters just don't age, and they've just been like Peter Parker was a high school student for like the longest time, just like the Simpsons have been in elementary school since I was in elementary school. But yeah, one day we're gonna have to get into that. What went wrong with the DC EU? Because
that'll be a future episode because there's a lot that went wrong there.
Tell you. Fuck Zack Snyder. I'll say that much.
I was gonna say, should we release the Snyder cut? But
the Snyder cut's it's not going to
save anything, and it's not
going to be good. Zack Snyder's not that great of a director. Like he created an aesthetic.
Yes, dark,
and he does not know how to get away from that aesthetic. Yeah, just don't work.
Yeah. We'll leave it at that. But so we've discovered that there is no redeemable factor about Pryde of the X-Men. The theme song is X-Men Save the Day, I think. Yeah. And then They're Coming Your Way. Yeah. It's very 1980s PSA.
Right.
But again, it spawned a really good video game, according to DEO. It was okay for me, but it's a really good video game. I've played it. I have it on my PSN network. Random, like that was my introduction to Nimrod. If whoever doesn't know who Nimrod is, he was usually he started off as a bishop enemy in the future, and then he kind of tangled with the Avengers, and he was like a bootleg Ultron, but that's neither here nor there. They never explained why the Juggernaut partners up with Magneto if Magneto hates non-mutants, but Juggernaut's not a mutant?
He's not a mutant. And that's the thing, like, I remember like when he joined like the X-Men for a while, I was like, you are not a mutant, sir. Stop it.
Same thing with Spider-Man. Spider-Man was briefly on the
Right.
X-Men.
And I was like, you're not a mutant either.
You're a mutate, but you're not a mutant.
You are not a mutant. I don't even, is the Juggernaut a mutate?
Nope.
Because
he said it in the 90s cartoon. He goes, I'm not a mutant. My powers are magical.
Right. Because it comes from the gem of Sidorak. Yeah. So like, the fuck? No, it's not. God damn it.
Then the Blob, who we've talked about in a previous episode about Wolverine's origins, monosyllabic. Yeah. Nothing can stop the Blob. Oh, okay. Well, the Blob eats the Wasp in another comic universe.
Blob. It's like, why y'all like making like larger people sound like that?
And he had a mace in the video game. He had a mace.
And I was like, I've never heard a large person sound like they always have food in their mouth like this. I'm like, what the fuck are y'all doing? Like he sounded like Vincent D'Onofrio in
Men in Black.
In Men in Black. That's exactly what he sounded like. And it's like, why were y'all? There are so many horrible, problematic stereotypes in this shit. When it's like, there are so many things that I cannot watch from the 80s without cringing, because I can't watch it with that same innocent, naive heart that I had back then. Now, because now I see like the detrimental effects that these things have had on people as I've gotten older. And it's just like, yeah, no, this ain't funny. It's not cool. I can't go back and enjoy it. That's like with me as a person of technically not Caribbean descent, but Bermuda has a lot of Caribbean culture. Mm-hmm. I can't listen to a lot of old like reggae. I can't because there's so much rampant and ultra violent homophobia, like bad. Like the stuff will come on, and I'm just like, fuck. This used to, like when I was a kid, I used to just sing along to this, like it was not knowing that they were talking about setting gay men on fire.
On fire, yeah.
Like I was like, yeah. But this is one of those things. Like I go back and I watch things, and I'm just like, I can't just enjoy it for what it was. No. Like it'd be one thing if it's some stuff I go back and watch. It's like, yeah, this isn't as good as I remember. But it's another when it's like, nah, this shit was problematic as fuck. And Kitty Pryde, like
she was problematic. She was pre-Jean Grey because she was moaning and whining.
Yeah, the whole time. Like anytime something went wrong, she's running up and hugging the first man she sees. Did you see how she hugged Professor X when she found out he was alive? Right. Like it was
on his lap and everything.
Right. And it was just like, yo, what? You literally just met this man. Like it hasn't even been 24 hours.
It's not even 3 hours.
It's like
the cab dropped her off. She was there for 10 minutes, fell into the danger room, and then Magneto and Juggernaut attacked.
All I know is Cerebro, like, I need whatever technology Cerebro had. Cerebro had 1080p, had 4K back in the fucking 80s, bro. What?
But even now, wouldn't that be considered kind of shady to have a mutant searching device?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like go back to the MCU with the Triskelion.
Right. So this is the thing about a lot of stuff that we grew up on. It was cool in theory.
Yes.
But once we actually see it in practice, we don't want these things.
No, we don't.
Like a lot of this stuff that we saw back in the 80s, we're like, yeah, I can't wait for that to happen. And we see it now, it's just like, oh, this is really bad. This shouldn't be a thing. So yeah, this was bad. I mean, it was a pilot. I'll give them that. There is that part of it, but it's a bad pilot, and I can see why it was never picked up.
Who would try? Nobody would have tried.
But we did end up getting X-Men the animated series, which holds up. It still holds up pretty well. Not
the animation toward the latter seasons may not hold up, but the story
were good. Yeah, that was good. Of course, we got the banger of an intro. Also, the Japanese intro for that show is. So I remember when I finally saw that when I was in like high school when we got the internet, and like at school because they had fiber internet, which was still probably like probably half a megabyte per second or some shit. Yes. And like we watched that, we were like, what? That just blew our fucking minds. Cause like you saw like the Brood and like all these other things, and we're not talking about the wrestling Brood.
No, not the wrestling Brood.
Like which another theme that is amazing. The Brood's theme is like that was hard body shit back in the day.
even the hip hop remix of the Brood is hard.
Yeah, like that. I remember when that first came out, I was like, "What? This is heat. I like this." But yeah, no, like the X-Men the animated series is good. X-Men and Wolverine was actually very good.
Wolverine and X-Men, that was good.
X-Men Evolution as well.
That's one of my favorites.
It was really done well. And like it had a lot of homages to things in the 90s as well, like The Craft. Mm-hmm. Like that there's a whole scene where it's frame for frame exactly what it was in The Craft. And I was like, I will love this show forever. And when it got canceled, I was so upset. But yeah, like it was, I would say that's the most redeeming quality of it. It showed the other series what not to be.
Basically, don't do this and you'll be fine.
Exactly, because that shit was bad. And not bad like Michael Jackson bad.
No, this is shitty.
Just shitty bad. It was very bad.
Yeah. So it gave us a good video game.
Yes.
At the very least. So I want to kind of pivot here on Damian and DEO here on Anchor.fm and on YouTube. Really quickly to say it spawned a beat 'em up, and we kind of alluded to it earlier with The Simpsons as another arcade style beat 'em up. Mm-hmm. Now, I've gone to many an arcade and thrown $1 billion quarters into these beat 'em up games. And recently, one has been released based on an old Sega franchise, which DEO kind of, before we got on air, reminded me it's a blatant ripoff of Final Fight, but we're not going to go there. Throwing in
we're going to go there. We're going to go there too.
Plus with Street Fighter moves.
Right. Like this was, so I got Streets of Rage 4 that just came out. And I've been playing that a lot the past like week or so. It's amazing.
Graphically, it's beautiful.
Graphically, it is amazing. It is the new sprites are dope. They actually have it to where as you can play the old style games or the old Mega Drive games, like they're like hidden stages basically, and you can play those. But then you can actually unlock the old 16-bit characters and play through the game again with them. And that's really dope. Like, it is a blatant ripoff of Final Fight. No two ways
Yes.
about it. Final Fight's a better looking game as well. I'm just gonna put
Based not four. You're talking about the original Streets of
I'm
Rage.
talking about the originals. Yeah.
Okay,
No,
yes,
not four,
agreed.
No. Like, but the original Final Fight game looked far better than Streets of Rage did. Like, but Streets of Rage had a better soundtrack. The soundtrack, the Streets of Rage series probably has some of the best soundtracks as far as I might even say it's in like the top 3 as far as series goes of video game soundtracks, because you could actually take those tracks and play, like, they sounded very much like early 90s house music and techno and things like that.
Yes.
So, and like even a couple of the tracks, so like Everybody by what is the fuck, what was the goddamn shit? Who are they called?
Not the Backstreet Boys.
No, God.
Well, you said everybody. I figure that's the one thing that pops up in most people's heads.
Black Box. Everybody.
Got it.
Yeah. So like you can see, so the composer of the songs for the soundtrack, he used influences from a lot of the pop music at the time. So it's dope. Like, it's always had one of the best damn soundtracks. But yeah, it was a blatant ripoff of Final Fight, because if you look at the game character, like the characters that you end up fighting against, the enemies, like same exact attack patterns, same exact attack types. It's like how you always have like the more rotund guy that just barrels forward with his head.
Mm-hmm. Or blows fire.
Final Fight, you had that in Streets of
Rage.
So it's just like, all right, it's blatant what this is. But yeah, it was dope. So I've enjoyed the hell out of it though, because it's a good amount of nostalgia, but they update it properly. And the cool thing that they do is, so you can actually play it in 16-bit, like the visuals to be 16-bit, and you can also do 16-bit with CRT, with the CRT effect. So for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, so the old big booty TVs that we had back in the 90s, those are CRTs, right? And if you look at an HD screen now, like, there's a shit ton of pixels that we cannot see unless you get a dead pixel and then it sticks out like a fucking sore throat from. But with the CRTs, it was like you had the red, green, blue lines. Like, if you really went up to the screen and like really looked at it, you could see those 3 colors. And you had those. So the sprites for these video games were they were calibrated specifically for CRT TVs. So when we used to play them on CRT TVs, everything looked super smooth. But if you take those same games and you just upsize them to a 1080p, they look like shit. That's because they were calibrated for lower quality TVs. So everything looked so much more smoother than the stuff does now. And like Damian, you said how like they took the like Morgan sprites and stuff like that, and
from Marvel vs. Capcom 2
and put those
from her original Vampire Savior and threw it in Marvel vs. Capcom 2, like Sakura's first sprite, and it just did not look.
It looked bad. Yeah, it just looks bad. But yeah, no, that was very fun playing it. It's
wait before you even go even more in depth, the story of Streets of Rage. Okay, there's always a crime boss. Okay, there's always vigilantes and all these side-scrolling beat-em-ups where it's on the street, and it looks a little bit too urban sometimes, where you're thinking, have any of the developers actually been to the hood? Because it just looks dirty. It doesn't. There's no other charm other than dirt and grime. I don't know why there's chicken and apples in random phone booths when you break them.
Right. So you can actually change them in the new game too.
Okay, good.
So you can change that. So like you can change the big stuff and you can change the small stuff. So you can choose individually what you want. Right now, for me, it's hamburgers and pizza.
Smooth.
It's like a whole hamburger, a salad, and some French fries as the big meal.
A salad?
Hey, gotta keep healthy.
Gotta get them greens, huh?
Gotta keep healthy. Keep yourself regular. And then like I had pizza as the small one, so it's just a slice of pizza.
Dude, that's like such a fat ass way to look at it, man.
But it's like I'm just gonna like pick up this slice of pizza off the ground and eat it. because that's what.
And I'm not a Ninja Turtle, so.
But that's the thing too. Is like so like the idea of like a lot of this stuff is like, all right, so you've got. I just threw this gigantic man into this trash can, and there's just a piping hot chicken, just a piping hot turkey just chilling there. I'm just like, you know what? I want some of this. I want some of this goddamn oil drum chicken. That's what you know what I want right now. I want this apple that has just been chilling in some of this fucking barrel for however long.
Next to the lead pipe.
Next to the lead pipe.
Right.
Or the knife.
Yes. Or the one stick of dynamite that when you pick it up, it lights, but if it's laying there, it doesn't light up.
Yeah.
Oh man. Okay, so Streets of Rage is vigilantes. It started with three characters. Mm-hmm. Adam, who was the token black guy, let's be honest here.
Yep.
He was the token black character who was a boxer character in the first one. Axel Stone, who was literally a ripoff of Cody Travers. There is no denying that. He's a ripoff of Cody Travers.
Yeah.
Stop that. No blonde hair, white t-shirt, blue jeans.
Like it's so blatant. Like they added a couple things to it. Like what was it? I think he had like a headband.
Right.
Or something, and like had Chucks on instead of just white sneakers like Cody.
Instead of white Adidas, yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. Whatever. Cody's fit was better. Like, yeah, it was that was the 90s was an interesting time.
And then we had the femme fatale.
Yes, Blaze.
Blaze Fielding.
Yes.
Who until today I did not know apparently was from South America.
Yeah.
Who would have thought?
Who'd have thought?
And the funny part about Blaze is that she was the most well-rounded character in the first one.
Yeah, she was the best character.
Yes, and she was probably the best character in the second one, aside from Max, the best character in the second one. And when you play through, number 4, you start off with the usual. Got Blaze and Axel, even though they've aged. Even though Axel looks like he's aged 25 years, Blaze still looks
fine.
Blaze still
whatever. Blaze a baddie. I didn't know what a baddie was when I was a kid. It wasn't even a term yet, but I knew Blaze a goddamn baddie. Like,
she fought in a mini skirt. And a crop top. With a jacket in the first one and the third. Was it the third one? No,
and was fully bedazzled up.
Mm-hmm.
And was the best character.
Yep.
Because like as a kid, you always want to pick the tough guy, right? Gotta pick. Like I was always just Axel, Adam. That's it. And then one day I picked Blaze. I said, why the fuck did I not pick her
from the start?
She's the best character.
Right. This is a time jump. It takes place, 10 years after the last Streets of Rage 3, I believe.
I forgot. But Axel's probably dabbled in meth, though. I know that much.
He looks like he's been taking some DMT out in the wilderness.
Oh yeah, he has experimented with some shit. Like if the cops ran up on him, he's probably got an 8-ball on him right.
And they used to be cops, for those who don't know.
Right, and they all used to be cops. Now they're just vigilantes.
Right now they're just fighting on the streets because they're not a ripoff of Final Fight or Street Fighter or anything like that. Even though a lot of their super moves, Axel, are ripoffs from Street Fighter-esque games.
Yeah. Like
Blaze throws a Hadouken? Really?
If you guys, a thing about the 90s, so there was like this arms race between video game companies, right?
Yes.
You always had to come up. So so you had Street Fighter and then you had Art of Fighting. So Street Fighter was Capcom.
And Fatal Fury.
And Fatal Fury was after, because Art of Fighting was the first one. I believe Art of Fighting was the first one that came out. Yeah, because that was back when Geese had the long hair.
Mm.
So so you
Prequel.
had these ones. So you had Ryu and Ken, were the two just palette swapped characters from Street Fighter, and then you go to Art of Fighting, and you had Rio,
Mm-hmm.
who looked, so he was basically
Ryu with blonde hair.
with blonde hair and a orange gi, and then you had Robert Garcia, who was like, at least they changed the moveset, but he was like this kick heavy Rico Suave with
the vest. With the vest. He fought with long sleeves and a vest.
And slacks. He fought in slacks and church shoes. It was amazing.
Like Steven Seagal, just as an Italian model.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It was interesting. But you had this like arms race between the two. And then Street Fighter took off far, like it caught on like wildfire in a way that the other ones did not. So they were essentially playing catch up to Street Fighter, because Street Fighter, the original Street Fighter, was dog shit, and it was on the NES.
I have it, so yes, it's still dog shit.
Yeah. So Street Fighter 2 was when things fucking took the fuck off. Like without Street Fighter 2, you don't have nothing else. No other video games come out if you don't have Street.
No, because they were the first ones to actually be a commercial success as a arcade fighter,
especially outside of Japan too.
Yes,
like you go, because like if there's anybody that was born after 2000, you're not gonna understand what this is. So like, you've probably seen arcade games, when you go to Dave and Buster's and shit like that, right? So arcade games cabinets used to be everywhere.
Right.
You go to the gas station, they had an arcade.
Pizzeria.
They probably had Street Fighter 2 in there because it was guaranteed to make buku bucks for them.
Bagel shop. In my neighborhood, it was a bagel shop that had Street Fighter 2.
For me, the place if you really, really wanted to go play video games, was the laundromat. And they would have like 10 cabinets sometimes. Nobody, like, you would have a bunch of kids just chilling in there playing, not chilling, no, because we were all fucking playing video games. So you had that, and then you had, the area where people were actually like, washing their clothes and shit. There, if you went to, so now, like, if you go to Pizza Hut or if you go to Papa John's or any other pizza place, there's just a tiny little waiting area that you can go to. There might be a couple seats there. So there used to be sit-down Pizza Huts, and they had a very, I'll have to screen.
Dude, that's old school. I remember the sit-down Pizza Huts when I was in college. That's a while ago.
Pizza Hut stores.
But the point is, while you look for that, is that you had coin-operated video games at these places that you would never expect a video game arcade machine to pop up.
Right.
And it was usually the fighting games. I remember this because even when I was younger, the side-scrolling beat-em-up Kung Fu was at my local pizzeria when I was about 7 years old.
Right.
You cheese that low sweep kick that beats 99.9% of the enemies in the original Kung Fu game.
Yeah. All right. So you've probably seen these types of buildings actually around.
This to the thing. All right, for those looking at we're gonna highlight this really quick. Yeah, this is the original sit-down fake ass Chuck E. Cheese Pizza Huts back in the day.
So you would go in, like, you've probably seen these things get turned into like tax places and stuff like that, and other restaurants or things of that nature. But yeah, so you would go here, and you would also have gaming cabinets in there as well.
Yes.
Like, if you went to the mall, you always had an arcade. And like, I remember by me, so the mall would have one. And then, so where I stayed, we had a mall. There were two malls. It was very weird.
Look at all these Pizza Huts, dude. Look at all these restaurants.
But they all looked the same. They all looked exactly the same back in the day.
No differentiation.
No differentiation between the two. Like, but you can see what happens, like, when they get taken over.
Oh, it's a liquor store. Yay.
Right. It's a tax store.
Oh, God. Probably Liberty Tax, right?
It is Liberty Tax.
Oh, look at that. I didn't even know.
So yeah, like you have those kinds of things. But,
Got it. And those were the places that had a lot of video games. And
Yeah.
yet, Street Fighter 2 comes in, people are lining up to play it.
Lining up to play it. And that was the thing too. Like you would line up to play. And the thing was, so you had a reason to get good at these games because you wanted to stop losing money.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you go in with $4 in quarters, you got to make that shit last.
Yeah.
Like you can't just go walk up in there and then you just get dusted within, 30 minutes or whatever. Like you actually have to learn the combinations. You have to learn all this stuff. You have to learn, like you want to do the playthrough so that you can get all the way to the end to see what it is. Even though the end credits and the end story shit for games were trash because they were like 30 seconds when you just played for like 3 hours,
right,
or whatever it is, right?
And some form of anguish.
Yeah,
a winner is you.
Bad, yes, bad. Like because these games were made in Japan, and this was before how things are now, where there's an active sharing of media, right? So like now, like if I watch anime now, when the anime comes out in Japan, it's coming out here at the same time. And we're already not just like, it's fully already, they've already got the subtitles and everything that's actually correct English. As opposed to back then, we never knew what the fuck we were getting. We would get terrible translations with stuff. Or you just have somebody that knows a little bit of English and they would use that as the person that would type out the stuff, and it was bad.
Well, if you remember the original Street Fighter 2, the Shoryuken was pronounced all you can.
All you can, yes. Yeah.
So
it was
adventures in mistranslation. And for those just watching and just tuning in now, we've kind of delved off of the X-Men fighting game, or really bad Pryde the X-Men cartoon, into how that actually became a decent video game, and then parlayed that into currently talking about Quarter Guzzlers and Streets of Rage 4. In reality, which is one of the best, it's probably the best Sega fighting game of all time. Not even, I'll put that against like actual fighting games for Sega, because people have been clamoring for Streets of Rage 4 for years. Because in my opinion, after 2, 3 wasn't that good, even though it had multiple branch endings.
Right.
4 for me is the continuation of 2. But the other characters, we talked about Adam, we talked about Blaze, who is Bay, according to me and DEO. Blaze will always be Bay.
Yeah.
Axel, which is the fake Cody, and then you had the fake Jax from Mortal Kombat 2 with the metal arms, who happens to be Zahn's apprentice.
Apprentice, yeah.
And for Sarah bringing up earlier in the chat, Adam's daughter uses a guitar.
Yeah.
As her fighting style, and uses the power of music, to beat her opponents. And in the game, the main bosses are the son and daughter of the original bad guy, Mr. X, and it's almost like Scott Pilgrim versus the world, where music is hypnotizing people. And spoilers for those who haven't played it, you fight Max from Streets of Rage 2 because he's been seduced by the music.
Oh, he fucked me up bad too. Because like I had completely, so I'm used to playing as Max.
Yes,
and
not
going
fighting
out
Max.
And rinsing bosses. Like Max was one of the first broken characters, and this is before the days of an update being released, because there was no update.
No patches.
There was no patches. When they wanted to update Street Fighter, they must. How many fucking times did they update Street Fighter? Hold on.
2 Champion Edition, otherwise known as Dash, Turbo, Hyper Fighting. Then there was Street Fighter 2 Turbo, the new challengers.
All right.
There's at least 6 updates to Street Fighter 2.
All right, Street Fighter 2.
At least 6.
And so we've got. All right. So there was Champion Edition.
Yep.
Then there was Street Fighter 2 Turbo Hyper Fighting.
Yep, that's 3.
And then Street Fighter 2, the new challengers. That's when you got T-Hawk and Fei Long. And you could actually play as the boss characters.
Right.
Then you had Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo,
which had you using super moves for the first time.
Right. And that's when Akuma was introduced.
Yes.
Where if you had there was a very specific set of criteria that you had to accomplish in the game, and then Akuma would show up out of nowhere and kill Bison.
Right. Wait, hold on. The chat, Eugene says someone said they'd watch D in Street Fighter, but I'm not naming names. You talking about me, D, or that D? Because
I'll get washed in Street Fighter. I will never sit here and say that I will watch somebody in Street Fighter.
I will say that I am confident one aspect of my Street Fighter prowess. Street Fighter Alpha 3, my Akuma can wash a lot of people.
See, so I got good. I didn't get good at fighting games until I actually think it was Capcom versus SNK, because that's when I actually got to use there was a roster big enough for me to actually figure out which character worked for my playstyle, right? Mm-hmm. And once I found Ryuji Yamazaki, I was fucking people up bad.
Okay, for those who don't know what we're talking about, Ryuji Yamazaki is from SNK. He pretty much is a blind Yakuza, fights with one hand in his pocket, but has a big-ass knife somewhere hidden in his pocket, so he has the longest.
Crazy as fuck.
Yeah, he was psychotic, and I enjoy his character, and he has a banger of a theme song. If you go back and listen to his old school theme song.
And and then they re-released the Street Fighter 2 Turbo HD remix,
which I like,
on PlayStation, which was actually good. It was cool, but I still prefer Capcom versus SNK 2.
Well, because of the soundtrack. This is true love making. Like the soundtrack.
Yeah. Exactly. This is true love making. I'll sit there. There were times when I would just sit there and I would go into the practice mode, or I would have my two controllers and I'd plug them in and I would put the time limit on unlimited and I would just sit there and just let the soundtrack play. Cause the soundtrack was that fire.
Right.
My mom had to hate me from that goddamn electricity bill. Because, man, I remember when I first got a PlayStation. It was a PlayStation. No, when I got my PlayStation 2, because I didn't get a PSX until after I got a PlayStation 2, because my mom got me an N64 instead of a PlayStation. And I bought my PS3 or my PS2, but I didn't have enough money for a game.
What?
Right. No, listen, I got a job. My first job that I got, my first paycheck went directly for my PlayStation 2.
Attaboy. Nice.
So I got that. Then I had to wait for another 2 weeks or so. Then I got a game. I could afford to get a game, or it was a couple games. I got The Bouncer.
Ooh, which is a side-scrolling beat 'em up.
Was that side scrolling? No, it wasn't side scrolling. It was roam. It was open roaming,
but it was still kind of
a beat 'em up. Yeah. This was how they were trying to take that was the next step in beat 'em up.
Fighting Force,
Fighting Force, right? Fighting Force. Wow, Fighting Force.
Which was supposed to be Streets of Rage 4,
right? Mm-hmm. So I got The Bouncer, but I didn't have a memory card.
Come on, dude.
I was broke. I'm a broke high school student. The fuck? I still had to my mom covered my lunch for 2 weeks.
just so you can get
it. She was like, hey, it's your first check. You can buy whatever the fuck you want with it. I was like, oh, PlayStation 2. Fuck yeah. So I got The Bouncer, and The Bouncer was cheap too. I got it for
$20 probably.
Probably.
Because it was an initial launch. So
right. Mm-hmm. So I got that. So I'm playing this shit and I get levels into it and I don't have a fucking memory card. So I just have to leave my PlayStation 2 on.
Running? Oh no. You left it running?
Leave the shit running. Yeah.
What Mom Duke say?
She didn't
know?
She didn't know. So I'll just leave the shit. I'll come back. That bad boy will be toasty.
And we didn't have the fan, the fan insulation systems.
No, them shits was hot, boy, hot. So it took my next paycheck. I went out, I got myself
got a memory card.
I was cool. I was good after that. Then
what else you forget?
I was good after that.
Okay, no strat guide.
No. Then I got Capcom versus SNK because that was also cheap.
There was not. I bought it for $10, so yeah, it was cheap.
Yeah, I got it for I think it was like $17 or $18 at the time because it wasn't a super popular thing.
No,
even though it's one of the best fighting games of all time. Fight me on that one.
I won't. It actually is one of the best fighting games of all time.
So I got that, and then I got my friend let me borrow GTA. I wasted so much of my life, my high school life on GTA.
GTA 3?
GTA 3. Yeah.
Okay.
So GTA 3, I finally beat that. And then GTA Vice City came out.
Oh, no. I
didn't play any other video games.
Nope.
I played Grand Theft Auto Vice City because, one, the story is fucking phenomenal.
Yes.
But more so than anything else. Probably the best soundtrack of all time on a video game because it's real music. And they picked it so perfectly to, give you the feel of the 80s and stuff like that. But yeah, so played the fuck out of that. Then what was it?
I've never really enjoyed a Grand Theft Auto game. I'm not a fan. I like 3. I like Vice City. After Vice City and Vance Lance and all that good stuff,
yeah,
I kind of put away open world. I think the last one I played was Bully.
Bully was amazing though. Yeah, Bully is apparent. I think they're still trying to make a sequel.
Look,
we'll see.
Good, and we can bring this all the way back because again, with Streets of Rage 4,
yeah,
sometimes we gotta let series just go.
Just go, right? Yeah,
let it go.
I will say this though: Grand Theft Auto has progressively. I can't actually no. Let me take that back. Grand Theft Auto 4 was hot garbage. Because
is that what what's his face? Roman in them?
Roman in them. Yeah. And you have to go chill with
It's Miko and Roman, and then like you have to bowl with her cousin.
Yeah.
And like start nagging you.
So you ended up having to do that. Lil Jacob. Fucking hate Lil Jacob. Lil Jacob would fucking text me all the goddamn time in that game. Hey, let's hang out. And and the thing about it was you had to hang out with these people in order to get the special abilities or whatever it is for the game. Fucking hated that shit. That game was trash. Grand Theft Auto 5 remedied all of those things. Actually, you know what? Grand Theft Auto
Liberty City story?
San Andreas was amazing. San Andreas was the amount of content that they fit into that game is stupid. Like it was, and it also had an amazing soundtrack. I can actually say that I did not really get into music until Grand Theft Auto Vice City. And that's because it was such a varied soundtrack as far as genres go. Mm-hmm. And then once I played San Andreas, it was the same thing because I was listening to the same stuff that I heard on the radio all the time. Right. And then San Andreas came out, and the amount of music that was on that was crazy. And it was newer music, and they had a reggae station, and they had a rock station, and
they had a talk station, talk radio station.
I listened to all of those. Like I listened to every single radio station all the way through to get like all of the music that they had. And then once that happened, that's what led me down the path of finding like listening to older music, and then seeing what that music, birthed as far as like other artists and stuff go. But yeah, that was a little journey there with those. But you don't have Grand Theft Auto if you don't have Streets of Rage and Final Fight. Because Grand Theft Auto is essentially the whole vigilante thing comes
Yes.
directly from that. It is
From those where it's okay to be a vigilante, but this
Right,
time you have a crime level.
right. They are fruit of the tree of those games.
Yeah.
So
So I want to wrap up on Streets of Rage 4 and just say that as you play the game, there are a lot of homages, not even to just, past Streets of Rage games, but also there's references and pop culture references where you notice it. For instance, the police commissioner, for me, resembles fighting Mike Hagar from Final Fight because he's jacked and he uses these clubbing strikes. I'm thinking he looks like Eagle from Street Fighter 1.
He did look like Eagle from Street Fighter 1
and SNK versus Capcom 2. And then you had what was it, Bay and Rhea, which is a ripoff of Beyonce and Rihanna. Yeah. And when I saw that, I immediately texted you and said, "What the hell?"
It actually does. So the character actually does have Rihanna's haircut that she had circa I forgot which album, but it would have been late 2000s time period. But yeah, it was
Bayo and Rhea.
Yeah, it was like you had that, but even the soundtrack on this one, it was, I don't want to say remixes, but very much similar tracks to what they were. They were like updated tracks of the original ones. And they actually brought back the composer from that stuff, who dude's got to be in his 80s at this point. But like it is a masterpiece. And for like $22 or whatever that I paid for it.
Oh, that's it? That's all it cost?
Because I got there, they had it was on sale, and then I have my Cash App card, and Cash App had like a 10% off anything that you do on the PlayStation Network and Xbox Network. So it was like $22.49, but I got it for like $20. So yeah, price is probably going to go up. I know my Switch comes on Tuesday or Wednesday, and when that comes, I'll probably get Streets of Rage on that as well, because I have friends that are on there. So we are going to be up on there fucking people up.
So what are your top 3 takeaways from Streets of Rage 4?
This is when they redo games or they come up with sequels, this is what it needs to be. This should be the like industry standard for it now, where you improve upon something. Like you actively improve upon it. You listen to what people say. You listen to what the fan base has to say, because this has been in development for a long ass time, actually. So you can tell that this was a labor of love. The people that designed this played the stuff ad nauseum back in the day. So like they knew that, you can tell that people that made the game really cared about the game in a way that you don't see in a lot of other mediums. Because we'll get these remakes and we'll get these sequels, and it's just like, all right, y'all completely changed the concept of it. It's kind of cool, but this right here, it was just great. Like it's. I have not seen a single person complain about the game.
I mean, I didn't buy it. I watched playthroughs and I loved it. I loved watching it. I loved everything about it. So,
like the only thing that I see people complain about are people that didn't play this back in the day that are getting their ass whipped by the enemies, and that's it. Like those are the people that I see complaining about it.
They got the old school bouncer, the bartender, Bourbon. It's like whoa! All these old enemies come back. The signals, the Electras with the whips.
Yep, like they really did. They did this stuff. They just did it right. And like, I'm having to relearn the patterns of bosses. I'm having to relearn hitboxes and like what things in the environment I can use and such. Like there's like one where there's a giant wrecking ball, and I can actually either, if they hit it, they can hit me, but it also will swing back and hit them. Yes. So if I get to the wrecking ball first, I can drop kick it and fucking take out a whole bunch of folks. But then I got to get the fuck up out the way, or otherwise I'm gonna catch that damage as well.
Right.
So yeah, it's very good. Like I said, anybody any company, development company that does another like a re-up on something, this is what you do. Like Final Fight, if Capcom is smart, they'll do a Final Fight,
4, because they had 3.
Final Fight 4, I think Final Fight 4 actually happened.
Oh, that's right. The future Final Fight with Cody's brother.
Let's see.
I believe the one has Cody's brother in it.
Final Fight. Oh yeah, no. So you had 1, 2, and 3, and I remember
there was a PlayStation 1.
We don't talk about that one.
You sure?
It's trash.
So, what are your thoughts on what's her name? Estella?
Oh yeah, yeah. Estelle is you have a large, brown-skinned, muscular woman that I am. Yeah.
So that's one thing the game actually impressed me upon was the inclusion of female characters that were just as tough, if not more so than the male enemies. You had, like we said, the fake Beyonce and the fake Rihanna, but you also had the biker girls, who replaced
bane of my existence.
Yes, they just like in Streets of Rage 2, the bikers were the bane of my existence. Yeah, and then you had Estella, who is a police officer, but yet you fight her on top of a train for the second fight.
I hated that I kept on getting clipped because I'm using a slow character. So I can't jump. He doesn't jump high. So like when I got to jump over the things, I'm just getting clipped. So I'm like, fuck it. I'm going to just eat it and beat the shit out of whomever else comes next. But I hated that shit.
But I think overall it's a good game. I would definitely advise people to go out and play it. If you've played Streets of Rage 1, 2, and 3, it's a good callback to Sega's heyday when they did go toe-to-toe at one point with Nintendo. And I have always been a Sega loyalist. I stupidly bought a Saturn instead of an original PlayStation back when they came out. I made that mistake, even though the guy at the Wiz warned me.
Saturn had dope ass games though, like Nights into Dreams.
Right. Well, at the same time, PlayStation 1 was out.
Virtua Fighter.
Yes, I'm well aware, and I still have both systems.
On, man. You still had. They had like, okay. Saturn was great.
Yeah,
the Dreamcast was a fucking amazing console
before its time.
Way before its time. Like Sega messed up in that they were way ahead of the curve.
Yes,
and that's where they messed up. They got like they jumped onto new technology without knowing what technology was going to come out after the fact.
They were one generation ahead.
Right. So like with the Dreamcast, they fucked up in making these games on CD-ROMs.
Ooh. Well, they were GD-ROMs.
GD-ROMs, right? But we could burn them.
Yes. And
like I remember one of my friend's place, and he literally had the entire Dreamcast catalog. Like this is back in the day when we used to carry games around in like big fucking like
the CD case,
a big CD case Bible. This shit looked like a fucking ancient tome that had spells in it and shit. Like I swear, one time I opened my shit up and a ghost came out. Like we used to carry those shits around, but he had like 4 of those of things that he had downloaded from Japan, the whole 9 yards. We were playing Street Fighter 2 or Street Fighter 3 Third Strike on the Dreamcast. And like that's when I first really started to tinker back into it. I was like, oh shit, I'm actually better at fighting games than I remember I was back in the day. Yeah, that was it was ahead of its time. It was ahead of its time.
Yep. And Sega just dropped the ball.
Sega fucked up a lot.
Well, the burial grounds doesn't help. Building your corporate headquarters on top of a burial ground doesn't really help.
Yeah. Like Sega just
that's another episode. We could talk about the urban legends of things of that nature.
Yeah.
Man, listen, since DEO and I started doing these shows again religiously, the amount of rabbit holes of conspiracy theories and gaming and cartoons is downright
telling
Terrifying.
y'all, one day, y'all are going to get like, since we're talking about fighting games, you know, since how you had Akuma and then you had Shin Akuma, you will get Shin DEO one day, and you will see all of my weird ass conspiracy theory shit and my cryptozoology.
I don't think it's like the Dreamcast. I don't think people are ready for that just yet.
Gotta open your third eye.
My chakras are a little too close for that, but we'll get there though. And before we go, last words on Pryde of. What are your last words on Pryde of the X-Men?
It was bad, but it gave birth to better things. That was the thing about a lot of the bad shit that we got in the late 80s, early 90s, is that it tanked. So like it walked so other things could run. But in this case, like it
died on arrival. So other things could actually live.
So other things could live. But yeah, it's bad. Go look it up on
go look it up on YouTube. It's there. Just look up Pryde of the X-Men, and how I'm going to leave it is the video game saying two things. Nothing can stop the Blob, and Magneto, welcome to die.
Yeah.
So on that note, welcome to die, everybody. You've been listening to Damian and DEO. Find us on YouTube. These episodes, these Monday episodes, will be strictly YouTube releases. I will not be converting these to podcasts. So you're going to have to tune in to YouTube to check this out. Every Monday, gaming, cartoons. Wednesday, Dark Side of the Ring. Friday, whatever the hell we want to talk about at that point. Could be relationships, could be dating, could be movies, could be anything. So that is going to be the format from here on in for the foreseeable future. These episodes, these Monday episodes, will be YouTube exclusives. Fuck around, we get a Patreon, then you'll never see them again. But you'll never see them again. But that is how we're going to do it. So, Damon G347 on Twitter, the Damon G Show on Instagram. I'm just DEO on both Twitter and Instagram, and DEO.shoots for all your photography needs. And we will catch you next time. Also, Jubilee's trash.